In this video I'll be taking a look at a Numskull quarter-size Pacman arcade unit. This unit currently doesn't power on, so I'm going to see if I can get it going again. Turning this device over, it's obvious that there's some damage to the rear panel. Now this unit's powered by a lithium-ion rechargeable battery, and unfortunately the micro USB port to charge it is actually not there. The cutout in this plastic piece at the back is actually totally empty. So I'm going to get the back panel off. It's easy enough to get off, there's only 2 screws to remove, and get a better look inside and see what's going on. Well, my first impression now I've got it open is there's not a lot going on in here, which I suppose is not too much of a surprise, but it does give a lot of room to potentially add things to this in the future. I just need to try and see how you get this back panel off. I think it most likely unclips from the side, but I'm not sure if there are any screws holding anything in as well. I think the other side looks like it's unclipped, so I'm just going to get a spudger in on this side and hopefully that's going to get it out. There we go, that's got that out. If I just hold this up to the camera now, you can quite clearly see what the problem is here. The micro USB port is still in there and it looks like it is still connected to one of the traces. But yeah, it looks like it's been torn completely off the board. Not sure if someone was a little bit overexcited, maybe tried to push the cable in too far, or maybe it just wasn't soldered on properly in the first place. Either way, I want to see if I can get this board out entirely, and then we'll be able to assess the damage a little bit more. There's a couple of cables in here to unplug. I don't think they're long enough to pull the front out any further, which is why it was so tricky to get the panel off in the first place. So looking at this a bit closer now, it looks like one of the connectors is soldered directly to this board. So to get it out, I'm actually going to need to desolder that wire. There's also a couple of screws holding it onto the plastic frame, so I'm going to undo those, desolder that connector, and we'll pick it up once I've got the board completely free from the rest of the unit. So I've managed to get the board out now, and we can see straight away that there's a lot of damage around the micro USB port. The port itself is completely fine, but a couple of the traces for the data plus and data minus have been ripped off completely. I'll be able to reuse the micro USB port itself, but I'm going to have to run new wires for the data plus and minus pins to reconnect them. I've also already removed the old solder from the through-hole ground pins. It turns out it actually looks as though the reason this came off is due to cold solder joints, which is an issue with manufacturing where the joint doesn't make a strong connection with the part, and it looks like that's what's happened here because the micro USB port came off and the solder was left behind completely intact on those ground points, the points that are supposed to anchor the micro USB connector into the board. So I'm just going to add some fresh solder here, hopefully make a nice strong connection, plenty of heat, and we'll take a look at the board once I'm finished. So once the connector was securely back in place, I used some enamelled wire to reconnect those 2 points. I did this off camera because unfortunately it was a little bit difficult to try and capture what was going on, but you can see the end result here and I think it's came out quite well. I did cut the one wire a little bit short, which is why there's a bit of extra solder on the one end, but that shouldn't cause any problems, and hopefully this board will now be working. The port feels nice and secure now, and the solder joints look a lot nicer than the ones that it came with. I'll get this board put back in the machine and then we can test out and see if it now works. Right, so the unit's back together now. Let's get this plugged in and see what happens. Right, so we can see the top lit up there and the battery light is flashing, which indicates it is now charging. So while that's good news, the real thing we've got to test here is whether it will allow a firmware file to be uploaded. And to do that, we're going to need to put it into a special boot mode by holding one of the insert coin buttons when the cable's plugged in. And the reason we need to test this is because the traces that were really damaged were those data plus and data minus traces, which are the ones that will be needed to get into that firmware flashing mode. Got the unit on its side now just so I can press that button a little bit easier when I get this cable in. Now let's see what happens. And straight away, if I just turn this over, you'll see that the light at the top behind the Pacman banner is now staying illuminated. If I just take a quick look on the PC, I can see that it is showing up as an all-winner FEL device, which FEL is just the flashing mode used for all-winner chips like the one found in this machine. So from that I think we can take it that this has been a success and the cabinet is now working correctly. I am planning to do some more videos with this machine in the future, seeing if we can get some extra games on there and adding some upgrades to the cabinet. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, be sure to subscribe so you'll be notified when these new videos are out. I hope you like this video, thank you very much for watching and be sure to stick around for the next one.